we watched the Section 31 film, movie, whatever you want to call it. I will start with the synopsis, and then we will discuss it, and then we can put this thing behind us. It starts in the Terran Empire with a quote about fate and a guy forging a sword. A girl comes over the horizon, and a young boy proclaims that Philippa has come home. She's been gone for 2 years. There were 18 of them that were taken away to participate in the Hunger Games, and only Philippa and San, I couldn't even catch what his name was. San, I'm not sure. Only those two are still alive. One task remains to become emperor. The final task is to kill their family, and of course Philippa does it. Legions then beam down to the planet and bring Philippa new robes and the other contestant. It appears that the other contestant, San, whatever his name was, he and Philippa, I guess, had formed an alliance, and it appears that they were lovers through their Hunger Games. He couldn't kill his family, so Philippa burns him with a hot sword, and he passes out. Not sure if he was dead or not, but she didn't seem to care. We then go to the present, and Control is looking for Philippa Georgiou. The A-Team is being sent to neutralize her as a threat in a place where Starfleet can't go. This dog bites, as a warning to the Suicide Squad about Georgiou, because no aliens on the team would be confused as to what a dog is or what that means. Or maybe we're just supposed to trust the universal translator to get the point across. I don't know. Anyway, a guy shows up in Philippa's bar. Georgiou eats an eyeball. She drinks a Harry Potter drink and exhales glitter. She asks the guy why Section 31 is in her bar. And she does a Sherlock, you have 6 operatives in my bar, and then goes through the operatives that she saw. We have Mech Dysmorphia Guy, Vulcan Men in Black, a Delton, Rachel Garrett, and a Shapeshifter, as well as the leader of the Suicide Squad. They're looking for someone called Dada No, who's peddling a superweapon. They tell Georgiou about the plan that they were going to do, but now that she has seen them, they can't do the plan. But for some reason, we see all the scenes from what the plan was going to be, which is a giant waste of time, and definitely just padding out this so-called movie. Apparently, Rachel Garrett is there on behalf of Starfleet to make sure that the Suicide Squad doesn't kill anyone. At the end of them explaining their plan, Georgiou says, meh, and tells them she has a simpler plan. So Daddy No shows up on Georgiou's space station. Not really sure why, but whatever. He's a catty bitch and tells her she's tacky. She puts on some phase device, one on the case that he's carrying with the weapon, and one on herself so she's in the same phase as the case. And she takes the case from Daddy No. The Suicide Squad then comes in and handcuffs Catty Daddy. Then some phased asshole in a mask comes through the wall. He wants the case, and he fights Georgiou. She demands to know who he is. He then kills the Delton. The case opens, Georgiou recognizes the weapon. The guy in the mask gets away with it. The Suicide Squad leader asks what the weapon is, and when Georgiou doesn't respond, he stuns her. We're now almost 40 minutes into this thing. And we flash back to the Terran Empire. In this scene, San, whatever his name is, the guy with the burned up face because she put a sword on it, gives Georgiou the device. He calls Georgiou a monster, and he appears to kill himself. Back in the present, Georgiou wakes up and tells the Suicide Squad that she ordered the weapon to be built. It's called the Godsend. There's some banter as to whether it's called the Godsend or the God's End. It is the Godsend. And this was just one of the stunted attempts that they made at humor. The Godsend triggers a chain reaction like a virus passing between planets. Everything in its path incinerates. An entire quadrant would be lost. If Georgiou had been defeated, there would have been nothing left for her enemies. Long story short, because this script was so padded with crap, I'm just going to skip over a bunch of crap that wasn't worth mentioning and just get back to it. All right. Vulcan Men in Black was working with San, whatever his name is, who clearly wasn't dead. Giorgio and Zahn have a moment where she apologizes to him as he's dying. It appears that Giorgio is going to sacrifice her life to close the gateway between the universes that keeps letting Terrans get through. The device activates and blows up the tunnel, and that should have been that. But then we see that the shapeshifter managed to beam Giorgio and Suicide Squad leader back to their garbage scow in the nick of time, and they live. The end of this movie sets up their next mission, complete with Vulcan Men in Black's wife in an identical Vulcan suit, and she's looking for him because she assumes that he survived the explosion because he's so small. Jamie Lee Curtis appears to be their handler or head of Section 31. I'm not sure what she was, but there she was in the movie. Giorgio's space station folds up and takes off on their next adventure. The end. This was a disjointed piece of shite. It's a shame because some of the tropes that were used in this, for instance, Giorgio sacrificing her life to try to redeem herself for all the horrible things she's done. They could have meant something if they'd allowed her to actually die at the end, but they saved her so they could have more adventures because this was supposed to be setting up a series originally anyway. So there went that out the window. Throughout the movie, they kept trying to let the viewer know that Giorgio actually did apparently have a conscience of some kind and felt bad about the genocide she'd committed in the past. I didn't feel it. They tried to make that love interest that she had a thing, even though we'd never seen anything like that when she was on Discovery. I don't know. It just, that was really bad. She betrayed that guy, and then he was burned by her, so his face is all scarred. And then he's a slave for her. And so he tries to get this weapon because he's going to, I don't know, make himself emperor or just destroy everything. I'm not really even sure what his motivation was there other than he was mad at her. And at the end, he failed. He basically dies crying in her arms while she says she's sorry. What a horrible story. He's the real victim here. I mean, really. Yeah, they had an alliance to get through the Hunger Games. Then she screws him over because he wouldn't kill his own family. And this is how he ends. So this is actually a tragedy. If you look at him as the protagonist in all of this, he's the real victim. This was terrible. This is terrible.
Remember, Giorgio in Discovery did have romantic encounters. She had that threesome on the Klingon homeworld, and she talked about Dr. Culber and Stamets. Remember, about in the alternate universe, the mirror universe, she had fun times with those guys. So that's the idea of Secret Hideout's idea of what romance is for Giorgio.
Yeah.
I was disappointed with this film because I was expecting a complete and utter smearing of Star Trek. And this film barely had any Star Trek anything. At the end, there was like some iconography at the very end, and they were playing some music. But through most of that, was it a 1 hour and 30-some minute run, this didn't feel like Star Trek. And I don't mean this as a general insult, which that applies too. But there was nothing here that felt like it was tied to any Star Trek franchise. This could have been just a generic science fiction property, I guess we'll say. Because I was talking to Molly when we were watching this, and I was like, this kind of feels like a really crappy Dark Matter or Killjoys, if anybody remembers those two series from the 2010s. And this film, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, because I still hold up Discovery as far as Star Trek being the worst Star Trek I've ever seen. But this was just not a well-made movie at all. The cinematography, I had trouble seeing things. They had action pieces, and either the lighting was all stroby, like when they were in that tunnel fighting, and I could barely see what was going on during that, or when Michelle Yeoh, who is 62 years old, was having her fight scene with Ninja Man with the burnt face, but she didn't know it was him yet. And, back in the day, Michelle Yeoh could have done a really good job with that if this was like 10, 15, 20 years ago. but she's 62 years old, and they were shaking the camera like crazy. And that's not to take anything away from Michelle Yeoh, but I couldn't see the fight scenes very well.
And they looked all smeary, too.
The cinematography in this was horrible. The sound, there were times we had to back it up because we couldn't hear what they were saying. And a couple of times we gave up. We went back like 2 times and said, I can't pick it up. We want to turn the subtitles on. Nope, let's just move on. So that's what we did. So the sound on this was horrible. The story was complete nonsense, as Molly mentioned. The editing, as far as giving any flow to what was happening, was completely incompetent. This film dragged in so many places, and some scenes didn't lead to it feeling like it led to a different scene, and it just felt like a bunch of scenes were like scrapped together, like it was a scrapbook project. And maybe it was. Maybe that's what this was one of those, we're going to shoot all this stuff, and then in editing we're going to scrapbook it together and make something here.
Frankenstein's monster.
I'm glad you skipped over a lot of the middle part of the film, because nothing of a consequence happened. It was just a bunch of just nonsensical, pointless, dead-end stuff.
Well, yeah, it was a lot of trying to figure out who the mole was.
Which we figured out, like, very early.
Yeah.
We said, yeah, it's the Vulcan with the bad Irish accent, and then the guy with the sword is still alive. And we were right. I mean, for a while there, we thought maybe it was going to be the mech guy, but that they set it up really clearly that it was going to be, was it Fuzz? I think that was the Vulcan suit guy. We mentioned the Men in Black because in the first Men in Black film, there was a concept very similar where there was an alien that was a little alien that was inside a robot human suit. And so that's similar to what was happening here. Both Molly and I are United States based, and we watch Dairy Girls and Father Ted and a few other Irish productions. So maybe it's just our own ignorance here, but was that one of the worst Irish accents out there? Or are we just not picking up an accent that's from a certain specific area of Ireland? Because that accent sounded really bad. We looked up the actor. He seems like he's South African, and I didn't see anything that tied him to Ireland, but I also don't want to be doing anything culturally insensitive. Maybe the Irish productions we've watched don't have the Irish accents laid out where we would recognize them, but this sounded to me like a really bad Irish accent, not native at all. But somebody correct us in the comments to let us know if that was an actual genuine Irish accent from somewhere that we just hadn't heard on television. But after the film was like 3/4 done, I told Molly, I said, you know, if they would have played up that Fuzz character as just an over-the-top stereotype, having him just do just all sorts of ridiculous things, get into fights, drink, whatever other stereotype you want to just throw out there, because this place is so offensive, this secret hideout is so offensive, why not go over the top? It might have been amusing in a, oh my god, I can't believe they did that.
Well, that goes along with what I wanted to say about that mech guy. His mech dysmorphic disorder or whatever it was. We could talk about people with body dysmorphic disorder and all sorts of gender dysmorphic disorder. I'm not going to talk about that because I don't want to get into trouble. I'm just saying that coupled with Starfleet, Rachel Garrett with the big stick up her butt, which is what Giorgio actually said to her, that she had a stick up her butt so far that it's coming out her mouth. There were times when I was questioning whether or not they were actually actively making fun of woke culture. I don't think they were. I don't know. Maybe they were taking that stuff seriously. I don't know. But there were times when I'm kind of like, are they actually making fun of that? Because either that or they're so tone deaf that they don't know what they're doing.
That mech guy, when we were watching it, after a couple of exchanges with him, I said what they did is they put that guy in that suit. And he was behaving like the stereotypical guy who gets the gigantic pickup truck because he's trying to compensate for something. And they played this guy up just like that.
There were a bunch of, stereotypes. You know, it went beyond that to the point where they were caricatures of what they had tried to write there. And again, I'm just going to say it, okay? So that's part of the problem with woke culture, is that they go so far with the stereotype caricature as to the person that they're trying to demonize, that they go so far with it that it's actually funny. Some of those ultra woke movies, you watch it and you laugh because what they've done is absurd. And this was definitely in absurd territory several times.
The mech guy, see, that's a thing too. Except for Garrett, I don't know any of these character names. I think Fuzz was the bad Irish accent guy. But I don't know any of the character names at all. And I don't want to. It's like Discovery all over again, where it took, 2-3 seasons to figure out where some of those character names were. Detmer, where it took a whole season or so for us to figure out what her name was. And I just don't understand. The mech guy could have been a cool character. He could have been this warrior guy with the suit on, but they played him off to be a joke, like he was some insecure,
low IQ. Instead of muscle bound, he was mech bound. Yeah.
But and they could have even done, if they were going to say, look, we're going to play this up for laughs. The humor in this wasn't funny. There was nothing at all that was funny in this movie at all.
One thing I will say is at least that Fuzz actor, honestly, I think, given what he had to work with, and that a lot of what he did was actually just voice acting for that creature inside, when you would see I give him credit for what he was able to do. I think he actually elevated the garbage he was given. But he was the only one, and I'm only saying that because I think what they were given was such garbage that it wouldn't take much to stand out as far as doing a better job than what you were given. I would have liked to have seen him challenged a little bit more, that actor, as far as what he was given to work with.
Well, that's the same sort of concept that we talk about with Spock in Strange New Worlds.
Yes.
Where if Peck was given a different role to play, that maybe he could do a better job.
Yeah, I mean, he's Gregory Peck's grandson. I want to see him challenged. I want to see what he can do. But the writing is so garbage that it's actually dragging a lot of these actors down.
But even then, I mean, again, it's the writing that would be responsible for this, but that accent that he was playing, and then they were playing that Fuzz character sometimes as a diabolical conniver and other times as just this comedic Irish stereotype outlet. They should have picked a direction and stuck with it. Either if they wanted to go with the, hey, let's be as offensive as possible, Suicide Squad style, and let's do this Irish horrible stereotype and let's push it up to 11. They could have done that, and I hate to say it, if they would have pushed it over the edge, it would have been funny in a, oh my gosh, this is so irreverent type way.
Yes, which makes me come back to, I don't think they were actually trying to do it on purpose. I think it was accidental when they wandered into, this is irreverent and hilarious.
And if they were going to make that Fuzz character this conniving, just really alien, then the comedy stuff doesn't apply to that because comedy wouldn't fit in with something like that. They were honestly trying to make something like a Suicide Squad or a Guardians of the Galaxy where they try to push a serious plot but have all this comedic quipping happening on the side. And it didn't work at all. I have no idea what the tone of this film was. If it was a serious film, if it was a comedic film, if it was a... I have no idea what this film was.
Well, to go back to Fuzz for a second, Irish Vulcan Men in Black, you're the one who pointed this out. It kind of was reminiscent of the Meep in Doctor Who.
If they would have played him up higher.
Yeah.
Because the Meep in that Doctor Who 60th anniversary episode, that was probably the highlight of that episode because that thing was such a jerk that they played it so over the top that the Meep was actually the star of that episode.
I loved the Meep. I really did. I thought the Meep was hilarious. It's like when you're watching something like animal videos and you've got this cockatoo or something that's so foul-mouthed you can't believe what's coming out of this bird's beak. That's what the Meep was like for me, just to the point where it was so foul it was hilarious. And I wish that they had taken Fuzz to that next level so that it could have reached Meep foul-mouthed parrot status.
Yeah, because then at least it would be, oh my gosh, this is so over the top. This is clippable on YouTube if YouTube would allow those clips to stand, because it would be pushing against a ton of social norms.
Yeah.
But they didn't go that far.
No. Well, they don't have the balls to do that. They really don't.
You brought up Doctor Who with the Meep. This movie, this film, reminded me of the Shooty Got What Christmas special we watched a month ago, where it was just so absurd with what they were doing, and not in a fun way, that you just stare there with your mouth hanging open because you don't know what to make of it. I'll give the Doctor Who episode, the Shooty Got What Christmas special, at least credit. It was about an hour long. This was over 90 minutes long. So this overstayed its welcome at least by a half hour more than I would have wanted. Because I can't really say that I hated this film. Because to hate this means they did something that I'm rejecting or I'm pushing against. This film was nothing. It was a bunch of nothingness.
Well, I'll tell you what, it was not Star Trek.
No.
Even to the point where I'm not even really offended by it on a Star Trek level, because it wasn't Star Trek.
That Rachel Garrett in this film, is that supposed to be Rachel Garrett from yesterday's Enterprise? I don't know. They didn't really mention anything that would tie it together, but the name seems to tie in there. But except for like I guess we'll call it a sort of Easter egg like that, and like the logo at the end with the music, the rest of this film didn't have anything that tied it to Star Trek, so that's why it didn't offend me. It's like I was watching some sort of low-budget, direct-to-streaming asylum-type film. It didn't bother me. It was stupid. It wasn't entertaining, but it didn't crap all over Star Trek that I picked up on. I wasn't offended like I am with Star Trek Discovery, where it craps on Star Trek on an episodic basis.
Yeah. Tiny alien running around in a Vulcan suit, not behaving like a Vulcan, but, pointy-eared things. You see that in the Lord of the Rings, too, so, and whatever. The Deltan, we don't really see them all that often, so again, it's this sexy bald woman. Again, I've seen that on Babylon 5, so, okay. Other than that, obviously, there's Giorgio.
Well, the guy in the mech suit. Hell, I was thinking StarCraft 2 at that. So, there was nothing here. Even Michelle Yeoh's Giorgio character didn't really feel like Giorgio. She was just kind of a conniving jerk character.
Yeah. So this didn't feel at all like Star Trek, to the point where I wasn't even offended. Because it didn't seem to say Star Trek at all. Not
even Star Trek, like proper Star Trek. This didn't even feel like Star Trek Discovery.
No, it didn't.
It just felt like it was a completely different property. A crap property, but a completely different property.
If you told me that this was Star Wars when it first opened and we're in Giorgio's bar and we've got that woman singing on stage and all these different aliens and things like that, I would have believed you this was supposed to be Star Wars.
I'm going to make some commentary here because I looked online this morning and people were like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for Michelle Yeoh being in this. Why? She got paid reportedly like $12 million to be in this. She was listed as an executive producer. I don't feel bad for Michelle Yeoh at all being in this. Heck, pay me half of $12 million and I'll go in something like that. Then you can feel bad for me.
Yeah, exactly. If somebody gave me $12 million, I would easily be able to live the rest of my life on that. So no, I don't feel sorry for her.
The rumor is, and it has been for years now, that it would cost too much money to buy out the secret Hideout contract and tell them to go away. And I'm asking the question. This film reportedly was somewhere between 80 and 150 million to make. And then Discovery reportedly was like $100 to $80 million a season to make. So let's assume that Alex Kurtzman takes $300 million to just go away. That to me is like, it's better than making... How many more of these productions do they have planned? They're talking about that Starfleet Academy show. We got another Strange New Worlds coming up. They were speculating on something else they're planning on making. How much does it cost to make each of those? At least $100 million each, right? So there's 3 things already lined up. If you just don't make those and give that money to Alex Kurtzman, you can push him away and be done with this. I can't imagine it would take more than $300 to $500 million to tell Secret Hideout to bugger off and go away. I don't understand this game they're playing where it's like, oh, it's too much money to buy it out. Really? You just wasted, let's just be nice and say $80 million. We'll take the lower end of the estimate here, but I think it was at least $100 million. $80 million on this thing that was nothing. I'm looking on the internet, I'm looking on social media, and almost uniformly, people are just going after this film as a piece of garbage. Rotten Tomatoes has a horribly low score right now, both by critics and audience. You just flushed $80 to $100 million down the toilet. This isn't helping your brand any. You think after watching this, that Starfleet Academy, people are going to run to want to watch that? I don't understand. Kick Secret Hideout out. Alex Kurtzman and his people don't know what they're doing. As I said earlier, they don't even know how to film a scene where you can see what's going on and you can hear the dialogue going on. They can't even do the basics, and I believe the director of this film also worked on Star Trek Discovery, which does not surprise me at all, because the same problems happened in Discovery. I couldn't see what was going on, and sometimes I couldn't hear what was going on.
Well, it makes me wonder if this director, or even these writers that worked on this, had they ever done a movie before, or had all they done, if it was just
television?
Series? Yeah, because that might explain why this is a choppy piece of crap, because they're not used to doing something that's an hour and a half long, and it felt like it was padded out beyond all reason.
It did not need to be an hour and a half. We were sitting there, and Molly mentioned that, geez, this could have just been an hour. And I'm like, I think this could have been like 45 minutes to 40 minutes because there wasn't enough material, because you skipped over a bunch of crap in the middle of just banter and bad jokes and stuff that didn't matter.
Yeah.
It really didn't matter. Mm-mm. And none of these characters, except one, was interesting. And the head of the Suicide Squad, when he was talking about how he was turned into an augment, and that history that he was talking about, maybe that would have made a better film. I don't know. It still would have been probably an ultra-violent film or something, which is all Secret Hideout can make. But that was the only part of this 90-ish minute run when he was talking to Georgiou about his past. That was the only part of this that I actually was paying attention a little bit for.
And that only lasted a few minutes. There were absolutely no flashbacks. It was just him relaying that information to her verbally. And yeah, that was probably the most interesting part of the whole thing, was his background. Because again, I think there's another actor there who was wasted in this production. I think he could have done a lot better than what he was given, because he was able to deliver those lines, and you could actually get a sense of the regret, the agony, everything that he must have felt when he was going through that. You actually were able to get that from when he was relaying that information to Georgiou. I wish that they had maybe done a movie about him instead of this. I don't understand this fixation on Michelle Yeoh and Philippa Georgiou. I just don't. Because I never found her character to be remotely compelling, like at all. And they spent a lot of time in this film trying to establish that, oh, well, she actually does have a conscience. It's so hard being a genocidal maniac with a conscience. Okay.
Well, we were watching this at the end, and I remember you sitting there with me, and you were pointing out when they copped out on Georgiou and him dying. You said they should have had them die because there would have been a little bit of a redemption arc for Georgiou. There would have been something there that could give Georgiou's character a purpose. Because we were sitting there as they were getting ready to die, and we were like, well, maybe they'll have the guts to pull this off and just kill off that horrible Georgiou character, but at least have her go out for a reason. And they couldn't even do that. They had to cop out on that.
Yeah, well, we couldn't have her make that sacrifice when we might want her to star in more episodes of this crap.
See, and that's why I don't give Michelle Yeoh any break on giving her, oh, I wish she wasn't in this, or I wish she was in better material. She knows dang well what she's in. She's been in other productions. She's been in film. She knows this series is a crap series. She's in this for the money. That's what it's about. It's for the money. She got $12 million to sleepwalk through this thing is what she ended up doing. And I don't get it either. The Georgiou character is not interesting. Now, I don't know. I've not really heard Michelle Yeoh in too many interviews. I don't know if she's an interesting person outside of this role. But this role, Georgiou, is boring. It is extremely boring. I don't know why she wants to keep coming back to this other than a paycheck. But if they're going to pay her $12 million to put in this sort of effort, then I can see why she does it. They're stupid enough to pay her $12 million because they want the Michelle Yeoh name tied to this production. I guess they think they can trick normies into watching this because Michelle Yeoh stars in Section 31, and then they turn it on for 5 minutes and say, this is crap, I'm not watching this. But she got her $12 million.
But do they actually turn it off after that point? Because I think a lot of people... I think they just have things on in the background while they're scrolling on their phone. And I don't think they do turn stuff off. I think that they just put this on and let it run. And then at the end, they're like, oh yeah, that was so great, Michelle Yeoh. Because that's what they're expected to do. I really do. I think most people don't pay attention. Of course, this goes back to the Mr. Brightside video that we did. I think most people don't pay attention. I think they don't actually... understand what they're watching. They don't think about it.
Other than being possibly a pilot for a Section 31 TV series, which I think the rumor is when they canceled the TV series, they turned the TV series scripts into this film. But what was the point of this film? I don't even understand how that weapon was supposed to work. I don't understand what sword guy on the side of the face, what his plan was by having the device. Now, maybe it was in there and I just have to go back and rewatch it, but I'm not going to go back and rewatch this crap.
Yeah, it was in there. I don't remember if he was going to fry the Federation universe and then sell it to the Terran Empire or what. I don't know what his little plan was. It really wasn't well described.
They mentioned something like they need to expand because they've eaten up all the resources, and so they were going to expand into this universe and like...
But if they fry all those planets, like how, what are they going to gather from those? I don't understand. It made no sense. That's why I'm like, I don't know what his real plan was, because the one that they gave out was nonsense. However, it makes a whole hell of a lot more sense if you determine that it's just, he just wanted to hurt her.
But they didn't play that up.
No, they didn't. They should have.
That would have been a better story.
That appeared to be his actual motivation.
Not a good story, because it seems like these Star Trek films, for a long time now, seem to be centered around revenge. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the Wrath of Khan too, but I don't want the Wrath of Khan made for every freaking Star Trek film.
Yeah.
Because it seems like revenge, that was the J.J. Abrams Star Trek 2009. That's what that motivation was about. There are other emotions in the universe besides revenge. So even if they would have made this a revenge thing, I still would have rejected it, but it might have been a better film than what it was, because I don't know the point of this film. I really do not understand the point of this film. Like, I don't know. What was the purpose? If it wouldn't have been released, what would be missing from the Star Trek universe that this thing introduced?
Nothing.
I can't think of anything. And again, I'm going to restate this. This film cost somewhere between $80 and $150 million. $12 million of that went to Michelle Yeoh to sleepwalk through this thing. So stop paying Alex Kurtzman this money. Just give him his $300 or $500 million and then have him go away. And then keep the franchise to sleep for a few years. Get correct people here to try to bring back the original timeline. Not the Prime timeline, not the Kelvin timeline, and not whatever the Discovery timeline is. We want the original timeline back. None of this Prime Kelvin stuff anymore. We're done with that. And those of you that think the Prime is the original timeline, Prime was introduced in that 2009 film because Leonard Nimoy was in it, and it tricks you into thinking that was the original timeline. It's not. Start saying original timeline, not this Prime timeline, because as soon as you say Prime, you're already acknowledging J.J. Abrams' work. Don't do that anymore. Just say original timeline.
Yeah.
I don't know if people listening to our video are disappointed. Oh my God, they're not railing on it because I was expecting them to hate this. There wasn't anything in here to hate. There was nothing here. It was a big bunch of nothing. In order to hate something, there has to be something I can say, oh, and I reject what they did. Because our video last week we did our Section 31 retrospective on Deep Space Nine and Enterprise, because my expectation was they were going to do some horrible, unethical things in this film. And this film was such a disappointment. I can't even come at it from a war crimey point of view. They did nothing in this film, nothing for me to even be objecting about except stop making a bad film.
This, to me, did not resemble Section 31 at all, as laid out in any of the previous iterations, whether it was Deep Space Nine, Enterprise, or Discovery. It just didn't. I don't know what this was. Charlie's Angels? I mean...
Yeah, it did feel like Charlie's Angels for, like, morons.
Or the A-Team, when they were taking that garbage scow and putting it back together so that they could fly it. That felt like something you would have seen in the A-Team.
Yeah, they needed BA to come in there
and weld it back together.
Yeah, get his welding and wrenches and put it together. Because I wish I could think of something to rag on this thing about, to just go at it and go, man, they did this and this and this and this. This isn't Star Trek. The whole film wasn't Star Trek.
Exactly.
But it didn't offend me in a Star Trek way. It offended me because I like watching good material, and this was not good material. So, like, on that level, as far as crappy entertainment, it offended me on that level. But nothing in here was worth getting upset about. I mean, maybe the Irish accent, but since I'm not Irish, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about that. And if people who are Irish are bent out of shape about that, feel free to vent in the comments. But since I'm not Irish, I'm not going to vent about that. And if that was Rachel Garrett from yesterday's Enterprise, why didn't they do something with her to try to tie her back to that somehow? I mean, the answer is because this isn't that proper universe. This isn't the original timeline. That's why they didn't do it. It was an Easter egg. But there was nothing here. I even feel bad about making a video about this film because our review is reviewing basically nothing. I mean, there's nothing here to review. There's nothing here to critique other than I couldn't see stuff, I couldn't hear stuff, and the story was stupid.
And it was disjointed.
Well, right, but that's why I'm wondering if this was scrapbooked together. Like, maybe they did film parts of that TV series ahead of time, and then when they yanked it away, the executives yanked it away, they took that scrapbook stuff that they started shooting for episodes, and they just slopped it together and made this film, and then filmed some extra stuff on top of it and said, here you go, here's a film.
I don't know, because I read one interview with that guy that played Irish Vulcan, and it said that he was brought on after the series was canceled and it was already transformed into a film, and that he never got to see any scripts from the actual episodes. He was just told that there were and what was allegedly going to be in some of them, which makes me question whether or not they even existed in the first place.
I was just trying to think of a reason why anybody who works in this industry, I'm talking the director at this point, but I'm also talking the person editing the audio, doing the audio mixing. How can you be this incompetent? Like, I don't understand. I was trying to give the benefit of the doubt that maybe this was just scrapped stuff from the TV series that they just slopped together. And it's like, well, they did a pretty good job for slopping, old scenes together from stuff that just never came together in the first place. But if this was this was an actual film, we didn't start filming any of it until we knew it was a film as a project. This was incompetent. This was probably the most incompetent thing that Secret Hideout has ever done as far as showing competency in making film in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Because this is on a level that I would expect fan films to be making, because for having an $80 to $150 million budget, this looked like it was filmed most of the time in somebody's garage or something, or a bunch of green screens or something.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody actually saw that movie Better Man, the Robbie Williams biopic. From what I understand, not many people did, and that's why it's the biggest flop of 2025. But the budget for that film was $110 million.
Right in the range of what this is.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up. And I actually did go and see that film opening day here in the United States. A friend of mine really into Robbie Williams, so I went with her. I didn't expect anything because, honestly, I don't like monkeys, so I was actually expecting a really horrible time. Much to my surprise, it wasn't, and there were only a few times in the film, like maybe twice actually, that the CGI was a little bit sketch. But for the most part, it was excellently done and I could see where the money went as far as the CGI. This, I don't know where the money went, because when I compare $110 million for Better Man to this hour and a half of crap that we watched last night, I don't know where that money went. Like, again, is somebody skimming off the top?
Well, look at Discovery. Except for the first season, where you can tell they spent some money on it. Except for the first season, Discovery from season 2 on looks cheap. Yet they still get these huge budget. Well, let me take that back. Season 2, that crap fighting scene at the end when they introduced Pike in the Enterprise, that looked like some money was spent on it. But for season 3 on, let's put it that way, it looked like it was filmed in somebody's garage, just like this film. And it's like, where is this $100 million going? Because after you take the $12 million of Michelle Yeoh out of the budget, the rest of these actors must have worked for peanuts. So where'd this money go? It wasn't the visual effects. The visual effects look like it was made by a bunch of interns using Blender or something. And
a lot of those sets looked like they were left over from Discovery.
Yeah, because when they were interrogating that, whatever the hell his name was, when they were interrogating the courier, it looked like it was a stripped-down Discovery bridge set.
I call him Daddy No.
Daddy No?
It was Dada No, I think, but yeah.
It looked like a stripped-down Discovery set. Even the lighting was similar to Discovery. It looked like a Discovery bridge set. Like it was stripped down and kind of shrunk down a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that after this film, they are claiming there's not only this upcoming season of Strange New Worlds, but that there's going to be one greenlit after that. How? Like, this is a dead franchise right now. This Section 31 film proved what a dead franchise this is.
I'm hoping we're coming out of the era of outsourcing to these, I don't know, I hesitate to call them smaller studios, but like the situation we're in right now with Secret Hideout being contracted to do Star Trek stuff.
And Bad Wolf is doing Doctor Who.
That was the next one I was going to mention, because I don't know what's in these contracts. I haven't seen one for myself, but as a viewer, I get the feeling that the contract basically is, here's a pile of money, make something that you'll slap the label on.
That's something we talked about right after we watched this last night. In the old days, executives would sit down after a day of production and watch the dailies, and they would see, well, what was done today, so they could give input on what was done. But it really does seem like Secret Hideout, what Paramount does, and before that it was CBS, they say, here's a bunch of money, go film some stuff. Oh no, we're not going to look at the dailies or anything, you just make your own stuff. And then they don't see the final result until it's actually, released on their streaming service.
Yeah, it's something weird is going on there. And I'm hoping this era of outsourcing like that is going to be coming to an end soon, because it's been such an utter failure, because it's produced such crap and people aren't happy with it.
When has outsourcing helped anything?
Never.
Because I remember during Katrina, they outsourced our FEMA stuff here, and that was a horrible disaster. I have a friend whose most of this person's job was eliminated as far as the group they were in, and it was outsourced offshore. And the service is so much less than what it was when it was all in-house.
And the best part is that they outsourced things like paying of bills. So bills aren't getting paid, which means that components, ingredients, whatever you want to call it, aren't coming in to create more product. And then customers who want to purchase said product and sell that product in their stores are like, where's the product? Well, it's hard to make product when you're not paying your bills because you outsourced it to somebody who was utterly incompetent.
And that's going to affect a credit rating down the road.
It already did.
I have yet to see outsourcing being a positive thing. Short term, it seems like it's saving money, but long term, the product itself suffers. And we're seeing this with these television productions. They should keep these in-house. I mean, I don't know, maybe CBS would still hire Alex Kurtzman. He would just be a CBS employee. But maybe they'll watch the dailies and see, what the heck are you doing here, dude? This stuff is stupid.
Well, it comes back to who's actually in charge and why are they allowing this crap to happen? Because why would you renew contracts for things that are clearly crap?
I have no idea.
And they won't tell us what the real numbers are as far as who's watching this shit, how much their money they're actually making or losing off of this stuff. And I just have to wonder what in the hell is actually going on. I just don't understand this.
I don't get it either. Anybody who watched this film, Section 31, and came out of it feeling this was a great piece of entertainment, normally I don't get insulting, but there's something wrong with your taste buds if you walked out of this and said this was a good film.
I think the problem is, like I said before, I really think that a lot of people, they put things on in the background and they scroll through their phone looking at social media or whatever, and they're not actually paying attention.
But then why do they go on social media and then they start getting lippy when people who did watch it say this is crap and they enumerate exactly what was wrong?
Because these people are so programmed to respond that way. It's a knee-jerk reaction. Anybody who says this is bad is clearly an hysterophobe, and it is your duty as a good person to correct whoever says this is bad.
This is the part I just do not comprehend, and these are the people who are defending this blindly. Don't you think Molly and I want to give positive reviews of Star Trek? Because if you think the answer is no, then you're wrong. We would love to look forward to every week, like we did with the Orville. When the Orville was on, every week we looked forward to the next episode. When The Expanse was on, every week we looked forward to the new episode, back when they were episodic and releasing them one at a time. We were looking forward to that. Don't you think I should be looking forward, both Molly and I should be looking forward to Star Trek every week, and we could come together online and praise the good work that they're doing making Star Trek? Don't you think we want to do that?
We did when Star Trek Continues was making their episodes.
Yeah.
But, CBS put a stop to that.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't do reviews back then, but every new episode that came out, that night we watched it on YouTube because it was an event. It was truly an event.
And the episodes were actually good, and it actually resembled Star Trek.
It felt, they nailed the TOS feeling for the most part. I mean, they modernized a few pieces of it, but for the most part, they got it down.
I think as much as you could, they did definitely got it down.
And make it watchable for an audience in the 20-teens.
Yes.
So, yeah, I agree. But don't you think we want to talk good about Star Trek? You're under the bad assumption that, this channel's a hater channel, and all they do is rip on the Star Trek stuff. That's because this stuff isn't Star Trek, and we know what Star Trek is, and we're saying we don't like it. Why don't you guys push for CBS/Paramount, Skydance, whoever's going to own it soon? Make good Star Trek. Then Molly and the old man will come on board, and we can all come together and have a good time in the comments praising what a great job they're doing and how they're moving Star Trek forward.
And maybe even have some ethical discussions.
If they understand ethics and they don't do the war crimey stuff, because that's the part that gets me too. The people that defend this, and there's horrible war crimes in there, I'm sorry. If you didn't pay attention, that's your fault, but you're supporting stuff that's pushing horrible war crimey values. And that says something about you as a person. So maybe you should pay attention to what you're watching because it reflects on you as a person.
Yeah. I wish more people would stop and think. Like, actually think about what they're watching. Don't just listen to what some authority figure tells you just watched. Actually evaluate it for yourself. Think for yourself. I think that's what this whole channel has been about from the very beginning, since I first started it, 4 years ago, I think? Maybe it was 5, I don't remember. But the point is that this has always been think for yourself. Yeah, I'm going to give you my opinion. I'm going to lay out an argument, but I want you to actually think about what I've said. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to tell you to think.
Well, last week's video. Now, we got a lot of interesting people saying, well, that's an interesting take on Section 31. Here's my take on Section 31. And last week's video was about the retrospective about Deep Space Nine and Enterprise. But there were a few drive-by people that I question if they watched our video. They just reflexively defended Deep Space Nine's portrayal because somehow they're tied to Deep Space Nine. Like, back when we were younger, and somebody got into a band, and if you criticize their music in even a very benign way, they'd like go after you like you ran over their dog or something.
Even if you just said, I just didn't really care for that song. But they act like you just criticized them for existing.
Because one person in the comments said that Molly and I don't like anything that's not Gene Roddenberry Star Trek. And I replied back and I'm like, I don't know where you got that from. Yes, we prefer the Roddenberry vision. That's why I said TOS and TNG to me is Star Trek. But I went out of my way in that video to say Deep Space Nine is a well-made TV series, and there are several episodes I do watch every few years. How is that the same thing as I hate something that's not Gene Roddenberry Star Trek?
Well, again, that's very black and white thinking. It's binary thinking. And with these people, there's no nuance. If it's not yes, it's no. And it's like, but where does Voyager fall into that? Because I, for the most part, enjoyed Voyager. I've seen every episode of Voyager. Do I think Voyager is the best Star Trek series ever? No. Did it have a lot of problems? Yes. But did it have a lot of episodes that actually made me think about things? Yes. And I appreciate it for that. And to say that, well, that's not really Roddenberry Trek, well, I think there was still an influence there. As far as, I think it would go along with TNG and TOS as far as...
Well, some of that. The problem I had with Voyager is some of the decisions that Janeway made.
True. But again, like I said, it makes you think about things.
It true. There at least conversations were sparked.
Yes. Whereas with something like Discovery, there was no conversation to be had. And they were committing war crimes right in front of you. And that's supposed to somehow be Star Trek. Because at least with Deep Space Nine, and again, this comes back to why we're saying, no, we don't hate Deep Space Nine. There were things there that you can talk about and evaluate whether or not that character was right or wrong to do what they did. Sisko, his actions, there were some bad things that he did. And you can have a conversation about what he did without people attacking you. At least you should be. But with Star Trek Discovery, the fans of Discovery, no, is across the board. If you question the actions of Michael Burnham, you're immediately some sort of ist, and you're shut down. You're not allowed to have that conversation. So there was no discussion to be had about the ethics of what they were up to in that show. That's a very different mindset. And again, that's very binary thinking. Well, if you're not with us, you're against us kind of crap. And it's interesting when people come in and accuse us of things like, oh, you don't like Deep Space Nine. Like, where the hell are you getting that from? Just because I questioned one thing that they did in the show, all of a sudden I hate the whole thing? What the hell is wrong with you?
Well, the person was stating because of the Babylon 5 ties that I make, because this person came at me particular, that somehow that means I hate the entire series. And I don't understand if the person maybe didn't watch our video, or maybe I wasn't very clear, where I still think there's good stuff in Deep Space Nine. But I'm going to be honest, because of the way Deep Space Nine started with the Babylon 5 JMS showing up to Paramount, pushing his idea, they said, no, we're not doing that. And then very quickly they assembled Deep Space Nine and put it out the door before he got his Babylon 5 off the ground. I'm sorry. I have a problem with that. That doesn't mean I can't look beyond that and say there's still some good stuff in Deep Space Nine, because there is. But I'm not going to lie and say, yeah, that doesn't bother me at all that they did that. Because I complain now about when I feel like they steal stuff, secret hideouts steal stuff from other places. So I would be a hypocrite if I'm complaining about that now, but when I'm looking back at Deep Space Nine, I'm not making those complaints. That doesn't mean that I hate the whole thing. I don't understand why we can't have conversations about stuff without it turning into some sort of just hyperbole, losing your emotions and just going nutso on the whole thing.
At least when we were teenagers and people would get upset if you said you didn't like a song from their favorite band, at least you can say, well, we were like 15 years old and they were behaving like a 15-year-old. But when people pull that crap now and they're a friggin' adult acting like they're 15, we got a problem. Because that's what a lot of this is. These people are still operating on the emotional level of a 15-year-old.
Well, the emotional level that these secret hideout shows are aiming at are like 15-year-olds.
Yeah.
Look at season 1 of Discovery and Tilly and Michael Burnham and that whole high school. Remember that one episode where they had that party that was going on in the cafeteria or wherever? And that seemed like that was some high school, possibly early college thing. And as an adult, as an old man, that didn't interest me. I'm like, that's not why I watched Star Trek. I don't remember any other iteration of Star Trek aiming at like a 15-year-old, 17-year-old, if I'm being kind. I don't know. I think they're aiming at that emotional stunted group because I think in 2025, there's a large number of adult people in their 20s and 30s and possibly 40s that are emotionally stunted at the age of like 16, 17 years old.
No, I would keep going with a higher age than that, and I don't mean the stunted age. I mean people who are stunted at that age. Like, I think there are 50s, 60s, 70s plus people who are running around stunted at about 15, 16. I don't know how that happened or why they're like that, but they seem to be running the show right now.
If you like Deep Space Nine, yes, last week we were talking about that. Or even this week, if you like this Section 31 film, power to you. I do not understand this week. See, last week, Deep Space Nine, somebody wants to talk about why they like Deep Space Nine. Since there's a lot in there to like, I know I'm going to have a good conversation with them. But with this film, I'm still willing to have the conversation with Section 31. But what is it? Because I didn't see, other than that brief couple of minutes of Suicide Squad guy talking about his past, that was the only thing, and even that I'm being very generous about saying that could turn into something interesting. That was the only thing even remotely interesting to me at all in this film.
Yeah, and when I'm talking about Fuzz, the tiny alien riding in the Vulcan suit, and how I saw potential there, the only reason I saw potential there was because it reminded me of the Meep, and it reminded me of Men in Black. So again, this is nostalgia bait for other franchises. That there was actually nothing there in this so-called Star Trek universe movie that actually reminded me of A, Star Trek, or B, if it had to stand on its own, it wouldn't be able to. It'd be like on the floor, unable to get up.
Well, think about it. I mean, they'll never do this, but imagine if there was a toy line that came out from the Section 31 film. What toys would you release? And then imagine the kids playing with the toys, and what would they do as they're playing? And there was no real, hey, I'm going to cut him in the side of the face, and then he's going to get in this ninja suit, and then he's going to fight me, and then I'm going to shake the whole thing around so you can't see what's going on.
And don't forget Delton's sexy time.
Oh, and she had that bubble gum that she blew a bubble, and it was a heart, and that was at the very beginning, and I rolled my eyes, and then they had these pretentious chapters to the film where I think it was broken down, was it 3 or 4 parts? And, you know, you add those chapters to that. I'm not against the chapters per se. A good writer would have those chapters actually mean something, like the title of the chapter would mean something as far as the material in the film. But those chapters didn't matter. I mean, it didn't matter. It was just all pretentious. Even the very beginning of the film, they had like a voiceover of like a Mission Impossible type, this is your mission. And it was so pretentious. That's the right word. It was so pretentious that I rolled my eyes so much into my head because I could tell from the very beginning when they did that this was going to be a pretentious movie that had no substance. And some people are saying it was all style, no substance. What style? It was cheaply made. There was no style and no substance to this film.
This actually should have been hauled away as garbage.
Yeah, hauled away as garbage. Maybe that's what he was finally talking about.
Oh, God, this was... I don't know. I don't even know what to say about this anymore because this was probably the least offensive of what they've produced.
I mean, the thing is, I would not recommend you watch this film, but if you did watch it, I don't think you're going to necessarily get all worked up about the horribleness they did to Star Trek.
No.
You're just going to probably stare at it and go, what the heck is even this?
Yeah, didn't feel like Star Trek. Really wasn't horribly offensive. I'm not sure who they made this for.
It's like hospital food. You know, different movies, different TV series have flavor to them, kind of like your meals. But if anybody's ever been in the hospital and you have the food they have at hospitals, it's bland, there's no seasoning. Yeah, it's nutritional, but that's about it. Well, this has no nutrition, but this was like eating nothing, like eating flavorless mashed potatoes with no salt or pepper or anything. You're just chewing, going, okay. That's what this film was.
Paste.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like I said, this wasn't offensive, but it wasn't Star Trek either, so it was disjointed. It was really a waste of time. Again, I think it's made for people who sit there and scroll on their phone with something in the background.
Or maybe they have a thing for Michelle Yeoh. Because there's a group of people, maybe they just are attracted to the actress Michelle Yeoh.
Well, they did have her in those boots.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's some sort of a S&M type fetish thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so, like, you're not going to be offended if you watch this thing. However, I wouldn't recommend it because, like I said, there's barely any story there. It's padded out like crazy. They'll show you scenes that don't happen.
Yeah, that was the thing, too. This film was 90 minutes long, or, like, I think it was 1 hour and, like, 35 minutes or something. They wasted part of the time. The Suicide Squad explained to Giorgio the plan they were going to do, but they can't now. And then they had scenes of what they were going to do, and they just were wasting screen time.
And I think that actually lasted longer than the simpler plan that she implemented.
And I said this to you at the time, because at first I thought, well, maybe there's some complicated combination lock or something on that case. When that guy came in, why didn't they just jump him and take the case instead of having this elaborate plan?
I don't know. And then when they did actually implement her plan, because they just shown us a plan that wasn't going to happen, we were sitting there questioning, so is this actually real right now? Or is this potential plan again?
Because I asked Molly, I said, okay, is this still part of what they were going to do? And Molly was like, I don't know.
And I'm like, no, I think this is the actual plan. I think this is actually real this time. But yeah, so because of what they'd done, there was question as to whether or not what we were watching was actually part of the plot now. It was very poorly constructed, this story. Very poorly constructed, this movie.
Poorly filmed, poorly edited.
I don't know what to say anymore as far as just how crap everything has gotten. Like, again, like we said, I hope this is just a symptom of outsourcing. That perhaps if they cancel their contract with Secret Hideout, that maybe they'll bring it in-house and do a better job, or hire some other contractor to do a better job, and maybe they will. I don't know, but this is garbage. Like, I don't even understand. Like, if they give this guy any more money to make more of this, I don't know why. This has to be a financial loss at this point. It has to be. I don't know how they're making money off of this.
Well, I don't think they are. I mean, isn't that whole Skydance thing?
I guess that's true.
They're trying to figure out, is this property? Is this...
And I guess that brings me to another point, because, the whole Skydance thing, because Paramount was the distributor for Better Man in the United States. And I don't know where else, but here, definitely. So they are taking a huge loss off of a film that was actually pretty decent. The marketing, though, was garbage.
I didn't want to see it. I saw this guy that was a monkey. Like, I didn't know why I wanted to see it. And you came back from the film, and you're like, it was actually pretty good. I wasn't expecting it to be good, but it was pretty good. And I'm like, okay. The marketing was horrible, because I sure as heck didn't want to go see it.
Yeah, because I hadn't actually seen the trailer before I saw the film. I was going with a friend because she's a huge Robbie Williams fan. So I had no idea what I was in for other than... he's a monkey, because she warned me about that ahead of time. And she's like, you still want to go? I'm like, yeah, I'll go. But the point is that I hadn't seen any of the marketing before I went. And so I saw the trailer after I'd already seen the film. And I was sitting there in awe with my jaw hanging open, like, what the hell was that? That trailer was so bad. It was not representative of what the film actually was. Are they actually trying to lose money? Is this a
tax write-off?
Well, yeah. Is this a producer's situation where they're actually trying to create something bad so that they can, A, get a tax write-off, B, somebody's trying to do this on purpose to lower the price that Skydance is going to have to pay to purchase Paramount? Is that what's really going on here? That they're actually tanking things that otherwise would have been good?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that other option there, but I mean, maybe. Because, see, the thing is, because I was talking to Molly about this last night as well. 20 or 30 years ago, I never, ever, ever would have tried to think about making my own productions. Because the people in Hollywood were really, really, really good at what they did. And some guy messing around in his garage, I never would have thought I could challenge that. But both Molly and I now in 2025, we want to challenge that. We talked about this last year about us wanting to stick our toe in the water of scripted entertainment. And, I got sick and then we got delayed. But that's still on the table. But I never would have considered doing that 20 or 30 years ago because those people were uber professionals and I have no ability to even try to compete with that. But now, it's not that I've grown all that much. I just think things are so bad right now that even me just messing around is still more competent than what Hollywood's doing right now.
And that's what it really comes down to, because you're not going to be able to compete with them on the level of, money for starters. It's just the two of us. So again, you're not going to be able to compete on a level of having a huge production with lots of people working on it. Technical skills, nope, don't have those either. Can't compete on that level. But what we can compete on is creating our own stuff. And they seem to be completely bereft of creativity. There's a playing field where we can actually compete.
Because what we are planning on doing is scripted material, and we 100% will not be using AI for any of the script generation stuff. This is completely going to be coming out of Molly and my head. So it's making things old school. No AI, just our own brains. Like it or hate it, that's what you're going to get.
Because that's the thing. You're not going to be able to compete with these big companies on the same playing field.
Creativity, though, we can.
So you got to create your own.
Any human being can compete with any other human being.
Ideas. Yeah. Come up with your own ideas. So when you think about it, you're not going to be coming up and creating the Harry Potter universe. But you know what? That's already been done. So you want to get your own stuff out there. What's inside of you? What do you have to contribute? What do you have to bring to the table? Who are you? And that's what we've got. And that is more than enough to compete creatively with these big companies because they don't have anything as far as...
Well, they won't let any creative people who have true talent get up the chain.
No, you are barred from going anywhere.
And they will not take chances, sometimes, but very, very rarely, on anything that's not a proven brand already.
Yeah.
So, for those who haven't been on the channel before, we talked about this late last year, where we are planning on doing our own scripted thing. We haven't announced the name of it yet or what it's going to be about. But then I got sick, and so it got delayed because we were hoping to have some stuff to share in like November. And we're getting ready to pick up production on it again. For those who care, and I think some people do, I've been healing up pretty well. It's been slower than I would have liked, but I'm healing up to the point where I told Molly, I think I'm ready to start working on this again. So within the next few weeks, we'll probably start working on it again. I don't know when we'll be announcing it again. Sometime, hopefully in the spring, we'll be making an announcement of what our project is and maybe sharing off some of the early concepts of what we're doing.
Yeah, because there's something we can do. We can create our own stories. We can use our own voices. And one thing Hollywood does not have is the voice of average working class people, but we do. We know what we want to watch. We're going to create what we want to see. And if other people are into that too, fantastic. If not, you know what? Create your own stuff. Tell you what, though, we're not going to get anything satisfying from Hollywood because, like you just said, creativity is actively discouraged. Truly creative people aren't going to make it there.
Which is a shame, because like I said, I realized it was on the decline even back in the 90s, but still, you had a lot of creative people still going on in the 90s. If this was the 90s or the 80s, I never would be making any thoughts about, hey, Molly, let's try to make our own production here, because it'd be like, what's the point? These studios are super talented. Well, all they have now is money. I'm not sure there's a lot of talent left at these companies, but they have a lot of money. That's the only thing they have over us is a lot of money, which equals they can hire a lot of people, where it's just you and me, so we have to be creative on what we do, how we do it, keep scale small, but keep it interesting at the same time.
And another thing that exists now that didn't exist like this back then is the internet. Because once upon a time, these big studios could make sure to keep certain films from certain studios out of theaters. If, say, I don't know, just as an example, like if Disney wanted to monopolize theaters across the country and keep another studio's films out by threatening and saying, hey, you don't run our stuff on 12 screens and you're never going to get any of our stuff again.
Wasn't there a Tarantino... I thought that was Tarantino mentioned that Disney did exactly that to one of his smaller films.
No, I was just using that as an example.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Hypothetically.
Hypothetically, if Disney did threaten the movie theaters, that they could make sure that your stuff didn't get shown. Because I do believe that this was discussed in relation to Kevin Sorbo as well, hypothetically. Although I don't remember who it was in that case. I don't think it was Disney, but hypothetically. But with the internet, fortunately, we can release stuff in a lot of different ways that people can get access to things. So in a way, there's been a great democratization of entertainment thanks to the internet. However, I think it's been grossly underutilized so far as distribution goes and as far as creative content that is actually coming from the grassroots.
We've got some very interesting plans that we want to try and see what happens and see if we can make our own little dent in bringing back good entertainment, even if it is on a small scale. So given that, I guess to bring us back to Section 31, my recommendation for this film is don't go out of your way to see it. You'll just waste your time. But if you are at a friend's house and they put it on, sit around and rip on it. It doesn't offend you it shouldn't offend you anyway, to a point where you're just going to get all red-faced and upset. But you could sit around the couch and just make fun of the thing. And that's probably the only purpose of this film, is to sit around and make fun of it.
Yeah, watching Giorgio sit around munching eyeballs, that wasn't too much fun. But honestly, they got that out of the way, and there really wasn't much gore after that. It was like a checkbox had been ticked off, and once they got that out of the way, they didn't have to do it anymore. It was just, hey, we had that edgy eyeball scene, because apparently there's some weird thing with Secret Hideout and eyeballs, because we've seen that over and over and over again throughout many series that they have done. But other than that, yeah, just sit around and rip on the thing and say, wow, those are impressive boots she's wearing. And
she got paid $12 million to do this.
God, I wish I could get paid $12 million to wear those boots.
I'd do it for half, and I'd put those boots on and all the other costumes. Pay me $6 million, I'll wear all the stuff Giorgio did. Now, nobody will want to watch it, but hey, if they pay me $6 million, I don't care.
Oh, on that note, thanks for listening.
Take care.